We transform organizations for success. NTT Data and Cisco together guide you through digital evolution to help you innovate, drive value from technology, and deliver reliable and secure operations. We simplify today's complex modern technologies and deliver long-term, effective business outcomes, building on an unmatched, secure global infrastructure to modernize and transform operations with industry-specific solutions that drive growth through strategic consulting built on our deep vertical industry experience, agile, advanced communication, and collaboration platforms to adapt quickly to change, all delivered cost-effectively while improving sustainability. Together, NTT Data and Cisco provide a full portfolio of services and solutions, including global design, implementation, support, and managed services, with a centralized management platform to streamline infrastructure operations and assure high reliability and stability. With Heineken, we implemented a hybrid workplace model to revolutionize employee experience and improve work-life balance for employees. We collaborated with the New Zealand Campus of Innovation and Sport to deliver a cutting-edge campus for athletes while enabling new digital revenue streams and data-rich value-added services. Our observability solutions accelerated Royal Caribbean's digital transformation journey to deliver a seamless guest experience. As a Cisco Global Gold integrator and Global Gold provider, NTT Data is the partner who can deliver your technology solution either as a traditional systems integration project or as a service. We meet you where you are. Evolve strategically with NTT Data and Cisco, a formidable partnership driving business success for over 3 decades. Together, we ignite tomorrow, today.
Hello. Exciting. We got here at last, Denise. Hi everyone, it's Stephen Kelly, Global VP for Sustainability Solutions in NTT Data. Absolutely delighted to be joined by Denise Lee. Denise, haven't seen you since Cisco Live. I have to say, phenomenal energy over there. Really felt like we could see some real progress and a lot of interesting conversations happening where people are really starting to drive this into action. Do you want to introduce yourself to anyone who hasn't been lucky enough to have met Denise before? Denise, do you want to introduce yourself?
Be happy to. It's great to be with you here, Stephen. I'm Denise Lee, Vice President at Cisco, leading Cisco's Engineering Sustainability Office. It's a mouthful, but really focused on energy management, power and cooling. So as that relates to everything from the campus to our new data centers that are going to power our AI future, it has been a jolt of energy. Cisco Live was a little while ago. We're always in between, one event to the next, but this last one, really, you could just feel and sort of touch the energy that was going through the entire conference with folks from around the world, even though it was our US-based Cisco Live. Customers were from around the world, folks from around the world. It's incredible to see how much change is happening, even if you look at month to month. I mean, I know Cisco Live was probably about a month ago now. Even in this last month, the amount of change that continues to happen in this space is just staggering.
It is. It's certainly, I think it's fair to say we've been working together over the last number of years in partnership, and I think the partnership between NTT Data and Cisco seems to go from strength to strength. I think it combined by a genuine purpose, and I think is one of the reasons I love meeting up with yourself and some of your colleagues and seeing some of the innovations that are coming out to help people really do more. And I think meeting clients, other technology companies, and seeing that the maturity that clients are going on that journey, and how it's moving from being a sustainability conversation and being a chief sustainability business officer to your point about it's about energy. It's around access to rare earth elements and concerns around that, around global supply chains. And with the advent of AI and you talk about month to month things accelerating, it seems like every day things are accelerating in the AI world. Certainly growing optimism about what AI can do, but also concern around, well, what does it mean from an energy perspective, and how do we make sure we manage it? I think when we last met, part of the conversation was this belief that the technology sector is going to go from an estimated 2% of world greenhouse gas emissions to up to 14%, is frightening. I think it's something that a lot of us in the sector are very, very aware of, and it's like, well, how do we continue to meet objectives, but actually to do things in a smarter way? What are you seeing?
When you sorry, you as you bring that up, I think it's hard to wrap your head around that just sheer amount of growth and like what that means to some of the folks in the day-to-day business, right? When we first started this conversation years ago, it was this huge education on how we measure what greenhouse gas emission was. It was just basic understanding of education awareness. And it often felt like a trade-off. Like you could either be efficient and sustainable, or you could drive business and make the economic world go round. What we're seeing now is this complete intersection where you can actually, not only can you do both, it's imperative that you do both, right? There actually is no AI without power. I've actually heard in the last 3 months of 2 separate large data centers, enterprise data centers. So not the mega hyperscalers, but enterprise data centers taking years to be built. Some of them even coming out of the COVID still, planning, finishing data centers and then not having the power to turn them on, right? Or if you think about the cycles of these chips and how fast they're coming, you could plan a data center 3 to 5 years out, and it will be completely, outdated by the time it's done. When we first started, the average enterprise data center was about 10 kilowatts a rack in density of power. For enterprises now, we're planning above 50, 70, upwards of 100. For hyperscalers, we're looking at over 250 kilowatts a rack. And just to put that into perspective, that can turn power on for 200 homes, right? That's one rack in a data center, of which you have a row of racks and many rows in any given data center. And so this is how those numbers translate to that 14% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. And now with the big education that happened a number of years ago across the industry, we all know what that sort of means and the tangibility of like the gravity of how big that number is.
Yeah, it's frightening. I don't know if every time I meet you, I walk away optimistic or pessimistic as to where the industry is moving so fast.
Yeah.
It's and you talk about the journey that people have been on, and we talk about the learning journey 2, 3, 4 years ago. I have to say, I was still seeing a lot of people who don't necessarily see that correlation between cost optimization, carbon reporting, see it in a very, very different way. And I think one of the things in recent times, I'm seeing a real mix of the clients who are going, actually, this is around driving efficiency. This is around driving optimization. This is actually about being smart what we do. And it reminds me of a really interesting study I saw in a FinOps community, external to NTT, across like 3,000 practitioners. And 17% of them said they were driven by saving their company money. Now, I find it shocking that it wasn't 100%, but saving their company money. But 51% said if they understood the impact from a carbon perspective, they would be more driven to drive that optimization. I thought, well, there's a real intersection in an organization. If you can give people the KPIs and the insights as to what the impact of their work is, they will drive a more efficient and optimized environment, which in turn saves you money, as well as consuming less energy, less resources. Are you seeing the same thing?
I'm absolutely seeing the same thing. So much of the work that NTT and Cisco does together is predicated on good data and making actions off of that data, whether it's how we manage and monitor the network or how we turn things in, up, down, off, left and right. Everything is predicated on good data. And so what we're seeing is, customers who are more open-minded to start looking across the aisle and look at multi-disciplines to bring things together. That's where you start to unlock more efficiency. So whether you're saving money for a company or you're trying to drive your top line growth, the leadership that I've seen actually open their eyes and say, hey, I need to get out of my immediate swim lane. If I'm in IT, I actually need to go talk to real estate and facilities so we can scale some of these solutions. If I'm in operations or I'm in procurement or supply chain, I need to take a thorough look, because those who are, kind of under a rock or just going to stay in their little corner, it's going to catch up with them sooner or later. So I think you're absolutely right. Those customers who are putting themselves more in that driver's seat to be educated and aware, and then act with the right, credible, reliable data, that's half the battle, right? More than half the battle, because once you have that credible data, the decision making actually becomes quite transparent and a little bit more obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's getting that trusted data, something that people can believe, and it's not sort of generic. So with the support of Cisco, we've been, as you know, Denise, we've been building our ICT carbon calculator and really trying to help clients make that decision. And it's all intertwined. I find people talking about circularity in isolation of, carbon reporting, in isolation of energy requirements, of, smart buildings, of all these different things, and going, well, actually, they're all intertwined. And I think in circularity is like 7% of the minerals and metals that go into technology are recovered, like frighteningly small at a time when we're consuming more and more. We know stuff is being burnt at 4,000 or 5,000 degrees temperatures. There's hydroallergic acids being used. It's really, I think, incumbent on all of us to have a better understanding as to what our role and our responsibility is. And we'll talk about that in a few moments, I know. I see a question coming in saying, are we seeing a change in the importance of implementing sustainability practices? I'll leave you lead that one.
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, because I think what people are reacting to, or the reason a lot of times this question comes up, particularly here in the States, is because you don't see the word headline sustainability as much as we used to, right? That's just a fact. And it doesn't mean, and this is what I think is most interesting, it doesn't mean down below people aren't working towards the right efficiency goals, the right measurements, putting these things into action. In fact, on the contrary, I would actually see action is more urgent now more than ever, because AI has pulled the curtain on this importance of water and resources and power, right? The fact that people now have to consider, should we leave the lights on for this hospital and this town, or let that data center keep running? Like, those are real conversations. Would you rather have your water at home in your kitchen, or cooling that data center next door? So you better believe those conversations are happening much more urgency now than they were a couple of years ago, when the headlines were flooded with net zero goals and sustainability. So I think don't just pay attention to headlines. I think it's very quick for people to look at that. What I will tell you is I am seeing much more action around efficiency and impact actually go hand in hand. And those individuals at every level, all the way to leadership, right? But every individual level, those who understand that, we're actually seeing quite a bit more movement and action. How about you? You're on the other side. I know you can't go anywhere without hearing sustainability in a conversation in Europe.
Yeah, look, it's I think it's always interesting to get the different perspectives of the conversations going on around the world. And I think there's certainly a lot of the European organizations I talk to, they talk about that in what they see happening in the States, and it moving off the agenda. And to your point, the American companies, because obviously lucky enough like you to be in a global role, I see the American companies are actually still putting a lot of emphasis on it. It's just called something different, it's which is heartening, I think, in that regard. And it's because it makes sense, right? It's not a bleeding heart conversation. This is one that makes a real difference. I think with regards to the change of importance in implementing, I think what we're seeing is certainly sustainability moving from a compliance conversation and a tick box exercise. I think we're seeing more and more clients make this, it's part of their weighting when they're making decisions. So that is always a really, really good indicator. I know 2-3 years ago, I know of clients who told me how important sustainability was, but then when they made a decision, and I'd say, do you mind me asking, what weighting did you put on it? Oh, we didn't put any weighting on it. Well, then, it's not important. We're seeing some major organizations now put a significant weighting behind that. I think people are starting to understand at a more macro level their role in this, as in what their responsibility in it. I think people feel a bit helpless. I know, and poor Denise is tired, I'm sure, of me talking about my two boys. I genuinely got into this, started about 4 or 5 years ago, really, really worried about what we were facing into and what the next generation were facing into. And it's like, how can I use, in the best possible way, in case any of my colleagues are watching, how can I use working in an organization like NTT, knowing the purpose-led mentality it had, how can I use that to try and drive a broader impact? I'm seeing that a lot more now, where people are seeing it within their roles and going, actually, what can I do? It goes back to having the right data. Love having the conversations around how do we flush out the right data? How do we even talk about where the right place is to put your data centers, your buildings? The difference in carbon intensity in different locations is becoming a super relevant conversation. To your point, data centers, can we even get energy in those locations? I think there was another conversation only last week with somebody where the grid provider was like saying to the data center providers, you've got to stop fluctuating as much because it's causing chaos, as you said, with communities. So it is becoming a much more interconnected conversation. And I think, we started this conversation talking about, partners and purpose. I think, it's more and more organizations coming and wanting to have those purpose-led conversations is giving me some level of hope.
For the record, I will never tire of hearing about your boys. And it's actually very, very common across this industry. When you're powered with purpose, everything just makes sense, right? There is no question of the why. And I think that's actually something that makes so much of this work that much more meaningful to get behind, not just as any single person, but groups of people in every role of any organization. What's the why? And whether the why is, hey, I want to leave the world a better place than I found it, leave the world a better place for the next generation, or it's, hey, there's a massive transitioning happening in business with unprecedented technology that's changing the world. How do we make sure that's for good, right? Yeah. How do we make sure, all the deployment of AI and the use of AI is for the betterment of in some ways, it could almost help solve some of the sustainability challenges that we see. So that part actually, I think, is very exciting. And the only way that happens is by folks tuning in and stepping outside of their day-to-day routine for things like this, and just being a little bit more aware of what's out there, what's new, what's coming, where can I learn more? And I think that's what's exciting about, that's why I do these conversations, because, we're out talking, we have the privilege of being at that intersection and seeing the forefront of so many incredible innovations, smart people, great conversations. And how do we share that with the broader audience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's do you find that the data is really providing clients with a different, if you like, layer of insights, and what kind of changes in behaviors are you seeing when people are using those insights?
Yeah, so I'll start, at the core technology layer, and then go up. When you think about refreshing any network, whether you're in the campus and buildings that are 30, 40 years old, or in the brand new data center, you're designing networks, you're designing topographies that now not only look at an IT practice. You have to start looking and working with the MEP firms, the facilities folks, the real estate folks, and then asking the question, do we have the right design that actually unlocks energy efficiency, health and wellness, the right connectivity? How terrible would it be to go work in an office and you're in some corner and you have no Wi-Fi? Right? How we design these things has fundamentally changed. Instead of just ripping out one box or one AP for another, we're actually redesigning entire constructs with newer technology. Some of that newer technology then gives you data, like the number of sensors that are coming off of all of these devices that are embedded in all of these devices can then be used to generate, analytics and insights that can over time be automated. So perfect example, think about how many buildings are just on when we're no longer here. Maybe there's a cleaning crew or someone in there, so they see some movement and everything is just bright lights on everywhere. Well, getting smart power or sensors embedded into everything, you can actually turn things, it's not just on or off, right? It's not always on, it's always ready. And there's different gradations of that hibernation mode, so to speak, that can save tremendous amounts of energy. Same thing in a data center. Data centers have to be cooled with air fans, with liquid cooling fans. Maybe there's some immersion thrown in there. How we're designing data centers are completely different now, all the way down to the chips and where the chips are going, because those chips are not only expensive, they run very hot. And so you're having to put more energy to not just run all of your workloads, but lots of energy just to cool it so that it continues to work. And if you look across and you break down all the disciplines, the coolest part I've seen in labs is pulling in disciplines and PhDs from all different fields that would traditionally would not think of themselves in a data center environment. Right. So you're seeing chemists, you're seeing PhDs that have both not only mechanical and information sciences and thermal, but you're adding all of these other layers that, again, from a data center perspective, that intersection is quite rare. And so the more we can bring out these cross-disciplinary innovations, I think the more exciting. It is complex, but the more exciting some of those changes are going to be.
Yeah, look, as you started talking about smart buildings, I couldn't help but, if I remember correctly, the first time we actually met face to face was in the new office in Cisco office in Paris.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, this looks like a very expensive building. And what was really fascinating to me was the fact that you'd moved from an office outside of the center of Paris, which was way, 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 way bigger. And you moved into this amazing location, but you'd really put the thought into how the technology was laid out and to make it a much more immersive or much more collaborative space, so that people weren't coming in to sit at a desk and put headphones on and not talk to each other. They were coming in, and it was not long after COVID, and the energy in the building was, and not just the electricity, but the energy in the building was fantastic. But the bit that I loved was we were in a session, and you talk about the sensors in some of the WebEx devices and things, was picking up on the carbon dioxide levels in the room, and they were able to track the attention span of people based on the carbon. And I was like, this is such a productivity conversation. Like, we're in this lovely office and people want to come in because it's in the right location, but actually they're down to that level of insight to be able to say, we're going to make sure we're giving people break. People are taking breaks. We're alerting them to say, take a break. The room is not conducive, or there's too many people. That was a super experience. And it's great to have seen it. I know you guys are rolling it out in more and more offices, so it's
so fascinating. The team that's behind updating these buildings, they take into account the local local jurisdictions as well. So that Paris office is a historical building. You actually won't physically see any AP devices in any room. They embedded it in the furniture because some of those walls and some of those paintings, I think something like Napoleon's goldsmith lived there. It was like the old Chinese consulate at one point. It's a historical building. And so they were able to preserve that. Our newest London offices have been recently redone, and they are stunning, completely just beautiful. So you don't have a trade-off. And I think that's the piece that people have to consider. You're not trading off cost or value or functionality for sustainability. We're actually building it all together. Another question came in about the most impactful changes a company can make to drive sustainability. One of the things about NTT that I loved when we first started talking is how NTT tied sustainability directly to top line growth for the company. I don't know if there are other things that you would call out for NTT. I'm happy to.
Yeah. I think it's definitely been we are an extraordinarily large organization, which brings incredible, as you'll know, working in a company like Cisco, incredible opportunities and incredible capabilities. And you look at the breadth of what NTT does, and I think one of the things I've noticed is sustainability, by embedding it and by bringing it together into one function, both our internal function, which we take really seriously, and our net zero goals by 2030 for scope 1 and 2 and 2040 for scope 3. Like, it's complex, and I'm lucky enough to sit amongst the team and listen to the conversations that are going on and how seriously people are taking that. It's not just a reporting exercise. It's that's what we've committed to. That's what we're going to do, and the complexity that goes behind that. and all that internal stuff. And then for me to be lucky enough to have been given an opportunity to work in a team where we're coming up with solutions that we can both apply internally, but also bring out to the marketplace and amplify it. So I think for me, the most impactful changes a company can make is understanding that underlying data, challenging themselves to move to better quality data, and then empowering people to understand the impact of their decisions before they make it. Right. To look at things like we've anyone who's been in the industry for a few years knows, a lot of the time operations in IT in particular can be very siloed. You'll have a network team, you'll have a workplace team, you'll have a security team, you'll have a data center team, server storage, right? All these different elements. And for a long time, it's been trying to bring these together. Well, actually, if you think about it as most basic, it's like, how do you drive down the energy consumption as much as possible, the actual amount of technology, and drive the utilization of that technology up so that you're using less? It's collapsing those functions together. So I think it starts to bring teams together. And I think when people are brought together to save money, I think you see one set of behavior. I think when they're brought together to achieve a purpose, and which may also save money, and more often than not does, I think you see a completely different energy about it.
Absolutely. I think to add one step further from that, right? So I think all that is true, but to take it one step further, AI is opening up complete transformation for business opportunity. And if I look at what the most impactful change, first and foremost, is education with the right data points. So we all have a current baseline to measure. But from that, how do you embed it into your actual business? Everyone's in different industries. We're all doing things differently. But how do you tie and embed it and you make it part of everyone's job? Right? You might have a small center of excellence team going through some of this, but ultimately it's everyone's job. It's everyone's responsibility. And the more you can drive that top line importance of purpose through an entire organization, that starts with leadership. It's further made real and credible with data, but ultimately it's up to every single person in a seat. We're getting a lot of good questions. Do you want to take this one?
So there are big challenges with new sites, especially with AI and high density. I'm assuming that means new sites around data centers, but also there's a big challenge with legacy sites, absolutely. And how do we financially improve power and cooling of sites?
I swear I didn't ask this question, but this is exactly.
I think when your team did.
Maybe. Look, the reality is power and cooling is everything in data center planning right now. It's where you start, it's where you end, it's your limiting factor. And with retrofits of data center, you're looking at completely new technology. So it's no longer just an air-cooled fan, right? The easy metaphor, everyone knows after a very hard, long workout, you can fan yourself with a paper fan. You can stand in front of a fan. No matter how strong that fan is, it's never going to cool you down as fast as jumping into an ice-cold pool. It's just not, right? And so the technology, what's available in terms of, how we're seeing the growth of liquid cooling, how we're seeing the growth of immersion cooling, how we're looking at new power distribution topologies and new technologies. One of my favorite technologies it's still in its early days is a new power distribution around direct current DC power. It's safe DC power, right? And it's a technology called fault managed power. So we'll send, we'll put links and other resources, but you have to look at what's new and on the horizon. Liquid cooling is not new. It just hasn't been required at the scale that it's required in the very, very, very short order. I think the stats are something like 50 to 70% of all data centers are going to need some kind of liquid cooling in the next few years. The numbers are staggering.
I think I'd also add to that, though, there's the question of what do people do with legacy sites. One of the things that's really astounded me as I've gone into this is the amount of aged equipment out there, right? That is hugely inefficient on energy consumption, right? And I got into this role and I was like, this isn't about selling new technology. And then you start to look at the data behind it and going, actually, how much can we save from a carbon and energy, from a cost perspective by transforming and by looking at that as a more software defined infrastructure to really reduce, because the sites don't, to the person on your team's question, because it's the person who asked the question, the energy isn't there, right? So you have to do something, you have to consume
on
less
site.
Yeah. So you've got to do it. And I think one of the things as a call out, I'd say to clients, like, you are in the driving seat, right? You are in a position to engage people in those conversations, to drive the energy efficiency and impact, right? We can help you do that. Cisco, NTT Data, we're doing this every single day for clients. I would say, other than you, I'm probably in the best job in the industry. And then Denise, to your point, embrace that innovation. It's, it's there. A lot of it is driving the right kind of behavior. You just need to make sure that you're looking at everything in its totality.
They often say better, faster, cheaper, pick two, you can't get three. Coming from Silicon Valley, I would say that's the beautiful thing about innovation. You get all three. You can get better, faster, and cheaper. And that's it. Right now, innovation is not optional. We need innovation in every discipline, in every aspect, to retrofit buildings and data centers to be as energy efficient as possible. We don't want big diesel generators outside of data centers anymore, right? You can replace that with fuel cells. You want on-site generation. There's a lot you can do to retrofit data centers today. And there's a lot of considerations, and so much of that is being driven by new technology and new innovation, which is great.
My last comment to that would be, if people are replacing technology, will you please make sure the technology that you're taking out is being treated properly and we're recovering it. We've got to move that 7% up beyond. Denise, it's flown. 30 minutes has gone in a flash. A huge thank you for your amazing insights, as always, for your continued partnership. I think being lucky enough to see on the inside some of the things that we're innovating and partnering on together, it really gives me great energy every single day. So thank you to you, your team, for all the support, and to everyone in Cisco.
Absolutely. NTT and Cisco, I think we're 30 years strong and going. So we're standing on the shoulders of some great giants, and lots more to go do.
Super stuff. Thank you, everyone. And, happy for people to reach out, connect on LinkedIn, ping us a message if you want to have a conversation. It's a super, super important topic, and one that we'd really like to help people get that momentum going. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And hopefully we get a chance to talk to you again soon. Thanks.
See you soon. Bye.
We transform organizations for success. NTT Data and Cisco together guide you through digital evolution to help you innovate, drive value from technology, and deliver reliable and secure operations. We simplify today's complex modern technologies and deliver long-term, effective business outcomes, building on an unmatched, secure global infrastructure to modernize and transform operations with industry-specific solutions that drive growth through strategic consulting built on our deep vertical industry experience, agile, advanced communication, and collaboration platforms to adapt quickly to change, all delivered cost-effectively while improving sustainability. Together, NTT Data and Cisco provide a full portfolio of services and solutions, including global design, implementation, support, and managed services, with a centralized management platform to streamline infrastructure operations and assure high reliability and stability. With Heineken, we implemented a hybrid workplace model to revolutionize employee experience and improve work-life balance for employees. We collaborated with the New Zealand Campus of Innovation and Sport to deliver a cutting-edge campus for athletes while enabling new digital revenue streams and data-rich value-added services. Our observability solutions accelerated Royal Caribbean's digital transformation journey to deliver a seamless guest experience. As a Cisco Global Gold integrator and Global Gold provider, NTT Data is the partner who can deliver your technology solution either as a traditional systems integration project or as a service. We meet you where you are. Evolve strategically with NTT Data and Cisco, a formidable partnership driving business success for over 3 decades. Together, we ignite tomorrow, today.